Hey, awesome people. Welcome back. Mr. C here with another fractions video. Make sure if you learn anything new at all, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. This video, we are going to continue with improper fractions. We are going to be adding improper fractions using the standard way, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. A reminder, if you have not caught up with us, or if you're new to Math with Mr. C, in the description below you will find everything that we have covered in 4th grade fractions. You will see mixed numbers, you will see fractions, we even have 3rd grade, and we have 2nd grade. Everything that we've covered in fractions, all of those videos are linked in the description below, so check those out. Alright, today, like I said, we are going to be adding improper fractions using the standard way. This will be the teaching video. Alright, got a couple problems for us. Let's get started. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, like we say all the time here at Math with Mr. C, make sure you have a growth mindset. Okay, growth mindset means that we use our mistakes to help us get better. We don't give up when something gets challenging, and we stick with it, okay? Keep practicing. The more we practice, the better we will get. Okay, so here we go today. If you haven't seen our previous video, we did add improper fractions using models. In this video here, we're just going to work on just adding them the normal, like really the standard way, okay? If, though, you missed that models video, I highly recommend watching it. Like I said, it is in the description below. Check that out, because being able to add improper fractions is something that you're going to find probably not really challenging, but you need to make sure you understand what it means to add an improper fraction. And if you watch that models video, you'll have a better idea of what we are doing here today, okay? With all that being said, let's take a look at this first problem. We have 7/3 plus 4/3. Okay, and the first thing that I notice in this problem is that we have numerators for both fractions that are larger than the denominators. Do you notice that? 7 is larger than 3, 4 is larger than 3. That means that both of these fractions are improper fractions. And we know that improper fractions means that that numerator is larger than the denominator, which means that it's more than 1. Okay, this fraction here is more than 1. This fraction here is more than 1. Okay, so the second thing that I notice is the denominators. Do you notice that the denominators are the same number? That's really important, okay, because, and we've talked about this already in a lot of our fractions videos, if these denominators aren't the same, if they are not the same, that means that we would have an additional step we would have to do. In our problem here, they are the same. So because they are the same, that means that we're going to be able to start off by adding these fractions right away. Okay, so here we go. Let's add these numerators. Let me change the color of my pen. Let's add these numerators. 7 plus 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. Now, what's the denominator going to be? Do we add the denominators? No. Remember, just because we have improper fractions, that does not change how we would add fractions. Okay? Denominator stays the same, and here is our improper fraction. Our improper fraction would be 11/3. Now, let's talk about that real quick. 11/3, 11 over 3. This numerator is larger than the denominator, which means that this fraction is more than 1. Okay, it's more than 1. It could be 30, it could be 50, it could be a million. We do not know yet, but what we do know is that it is more than 1. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I want you to think about this for a second. How would we take this improper fraction and turn it into a mixed number? And that's something that is going to take a lot of practice. It's going to take us some thinking through and all that kind of stuff. But I want to show you really quickly how you can kind of go through it. And we'll talk about it later on in some of our other videos. This is what you would do. We have 3 as our denominator, and we have 11 as our numerator. How many times can 3 out of 3, be taken out of 11/3? So what I'm saying is if we have 11/3 and we subtract 3/3, what we're doing here, this 3/3 is the same thing as 1 whole. Would you agree with that? 3/3 is the same thing as 1 whole. And so what we're doing here is we're trying to turn 11/3 into a mixed number. And to do that, what we're going to do is, in a way, take away 3/3 each time in order to give us our mixed number. And so I can take away 3/3 3 different times. So this mixed number is going to have a whole number of 3, 3, 6, 9, and then I'm going to have 2/3 as my fraction. Okay, and again, this is something that we'll talk about in a later video. I just want to point out the way you can do this is you're basically taking out whatever that denominator is. You're taking 3/3 out of 11/3 and just converting that into a whole number. Okay, so how I did that was I took away 3/3, 3/3, 3/3, so that was 9, and then I had 2/3 as my fraction. Okay, and again, this is something that just takes a lot of practice, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it in this video. I just wanted to point it out to you. Okay, so our answer, either way you could have gotten it, as 11/3 or 3 2/3, both of them would be correct if we were adding this. The only time really that you would have to make sure you have this answer is if your teacher, your parent, excuse me, if you're a teacher or a parent and you're saying, hey, let's convert this improper fraction into a mixed number. And again, this is an extra step. So teachers, parents, if you can get them to this step here, this is a good spot to be at. Okay, this next step is the challenge. That's that next level thinking. That's that next level of this learning. So if we can get to this point, great. Next step is to get here, and we're going to work on getting you there. All right, try another one with me. Second problem here on the screen, we have 6/5 plus 9/5. And again, let's kind of think through and see what we notice. First thing I'm noticing is that we have 6/5 and 9/5, and both of those are improper fractions, meaning the numerator is larger than the denominator, which tells us that both of these fractions are more than 1. And so if we are going to add these two fractions and they're both more than 1, well, think about it. Our answer is definitely going to be an improper fraction, right? Our answer is going to have to be more than 1 as well because we're adding two numbers that are more than 1, okay? Next thing I notice is the denominators are the same. So that means that we're going to be able to jump right into adding this. If they weren't the same, remember, we would have an additional step. So let's go ahead and get to solving this here. We have 6/5 plus 9/5. Let's add these numerators. 6 plus 9 is 14. And the denominators, we do not add them. They stay the same. So if we were to add these two improper fractions, we would get the answer of 14/5. This would be the answer as an improper fraction. And again, parents, teachers, if your student gets to this point, that's a good spot to be at, okay? Next step would to either be drawing that model, which we talked about in our other video, which is really helpful to be able to see what this looks like, or if they're ready for it, jump into this next step. And this next step means that we're going to take this improper fraction and turn it into a mixed number. And to convert that, same thing. This time the denominator is 5, so I'm going to be taking away 5/5 each time. Okay, and again, I'm not like literally like subtracting 5/5. What I'm doing is I'm taking 5/5 and I'm converting that into 1 whole. Okay, because 1 whole is the same thing as 5/5. That's what we're doing here whenever I say that. Okay, we're converting 1 whole into 5/5. So to do so, I've got to think here. I can take away 5/5 one time. If I take away another 5/5, that would be 10/10, or excuse me, 10/5. 10/5 would be 2. How many fifths do we have left over? We have 4/5 left over. And again, this is something we're going to cover a little bit later on. Just want to point it out here. Some of you may be ready to start working on this. Some of you may not. And again, that just means you're not ready yet. That's the cool thing about growth mindset. It just means that we just may not know how to do something yet. All right. So either way you get an answer here, you can have either answer, 14/5 or 2 4/5. Either one is correct. All right. Ask yourself, where'd you get stuck at? What's confusing? What isn't making sense? The more we practice this, the better we are going to get. All right. You've learned a lot so far on improper fractions. We've learned a lot so far with mixed numbers. We've learned a lot with just pure fractions. It's all building on each other. Okay, stick with it. Rewatch this video if you need to. Check out our videos from last week where we talked about adding improper fractions using models. Those were really helpful to help us see what we were doing. All right. Make sure if you're ready for a challenge, you'll find a description in the description below. The practice problems videos. Check those out. I've got a couple problems I want to do with you there. Make sure if you learned anything new at all in this video, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. That's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. C, out.